You're listening to the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast with Chicago attorney Dave Scriven-Young. This podcast is brought to you by Anchor, which is the app that I use to record and edit the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, so let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 209 of the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast for May 26, 2020. My name is Dave Scriven-Young, an attorney from Chicago, Illinois, and I'll be your host. This podcast takes you on a daily journey to discover key principles in the areas of marketing, sales, and leadership for attorneys. So we're continuing on with the Leadershift book from Dr. John Maxwell. But today we're going to be shifting, if you will, to another topic, which is we're making the shift from in communications, shifting from directing to connecting. And I have to admit, I think I'm more of a directing type of communicator. And I think that, and what that typically means is somebody like, your typical pastor who has a message. It's a very top-down sort of message. I think that you should do this. I think that you should do that. If someone presents you with a problem, then you always give them a solution. Maybe you're going to provide someone with a schedule of things to do to help them with whatever problem they have. Be very practical and give them a game plan. But as Dr. Maxwell says in his book, while that may be a very natural leadership style for me, it's not what's best for others. Nobody wants to be bossed around. People may only follow you because they feel like they have to, and that's not really what you want in your leadership, right? I don't want to feel like people are following me because they have some sort of, just because maybe I employ them, or because they're in a membership organization and I just happen to be the leader, and because they feel like they have to, give me or follow me because I just happen to be the leader at the time. That's not really what I want. I really want people to buy into my vision and direction, and I think my communication style, could be vastly improved. And so what I'm hoping is that, through learning these techniques, continuing on with this podcast, that I will improve my communication techniques. You'll see that. But also maybe you'll improve your communication techniques as well. As I say every day, this is a daily journey. Not only a daily journey for you, but a daily journey for me as well. So let's talk about the new paradigm, as Dr. Maxwell talks about. He begins by talking about his experience hiring a business consultant, and how this is when he was interested in developing a new business, new organization, and he was surprised that the consultant basically started by asking questions the whole time. And that was because the consultant, that Maxwell says, the consultant wanted to find him. So in other words, find out who Maxwell was, where he had been, where he hoped to go, before the consultant could lead him. And that opened Maxwell's eyes to a new way of leading, and it really became the foundation of his practice of connecting with others. And so asking questions became a key component to anything that he did before he tried to lead people. And I think that's a great way to think about it. He also talked about attending a basketball game with Coach Pat Summitt, who was coaching the University of Tennessee Lady Volunteers, and looking at her halftime routine. Which, if you think about, halftime routines, I think what comes to mind typically is a coach giving a pep talk, or basically telling them, okay, well, you did this wrong, and so you're going to do this better, and then motivating them to make that shift. Well, what Pat Summitt, or what Dr. Maxwell witnessed during the Pat Summitt halftime talk, was actually a student-led halftime talk, where basically Coach Pat and her other coaches huddled together away with the players, and the players sat in a semicircle around a whiteboard that had 3 questions written on it. What did we do right in the first half? What did we do wrong? And what do we need to change? And so the players basically discussed those answers, wrote down the responses, and then the coach came up to the whiteboard, looked at the answers, made a few comments, and then sent back the players back out onto the floor to warm up for the second half. And it's really interesting because, again, you think that the coach would come up with her own things to say, but actually she let her players lead the discussion, let her players come to their own solution. And so asking the questions allowed the players to come up with their own answers. Now, sure, she just didn't let the players figure it out on their own and just let them out. No, she had her own commentary on the questions and answers. But it began with asking the questions. And the quote from Pat Summitt is, "There are too many leaders lead by assumption. They assume that they know where their people are. That halftime exercise lets me find my players so I can lead them. That can only be done by asking questions and listening to their answers." And so, this really helped Dr. Maxwell change his his communication style from directing to connecting. And that was the basis for his leadership and communication style. So there are differences between directing and connecting, obviously. Directing is authoritative, where connecting is collaborative. Directing is talking, where connecting is listening. Directing is top-down, where connecting is side-by-side. Directing is enlisting. Connecting is empowering. Directing assumes. Connecting people understand. Directing gives answers, where connecting asks questions. And directing leads people to my own agenda as a leader, whereas connecting leads to your agenda as a follower. So you're really looking for, when you're connecting, is to find common ground between the people, that the followers, if you will, finding common ground with the leader initiating the conversation. So I think what we need to remember is, and so many, I think, lawyers fall into this trap where, especially, people who are in, authority, they think they have the answer, and oftentimes they do. And it's because they have maybe more knowledge, more experience. But listening to associates, paralegals, assistants, to get those questions answered, is really what you're looking for. So Dr. Maxwell ends this segment by coming up with a place where what connecting is all about is basically a place where both people meet, so both the leader and the follower, where both people are valued, both people share, both people listen and learn, both people adjust, both people settle on a game plan, both people take ownership of the game plan, and both people move together to higher ground. So I think, based on sort of this whole thing, I think I've been saying this the whole time, but for those of you who are new or maybe who weren't taking me seriously, I'm really interested in your feedback in this podcast. And what I do on the Leaders Emotional Intelligence Book Club, the stuff that I do on social media. Engagement is really important to me because I want to make sure that I'm tailoring my messages to you, but not only my message, because really I want to know what interests you. I want to know what you want to hear. I want to know what other voices you want to hear from. So what we're going to do today for your daily action item is to look at our communication style. I talked a little bit about what I think my communication style is, and what it may be in reality, because it may be two different things. People may see me as someone who just wants to direct them into certain things. I'm more bringing. I think that I'm bringing this knowledge to. I don't know, to help people to engage and to learn, because I'm not the expert here. That's why I'm using these textbooks from marketing, sales, and leadership from diverse backgrounds, because I think it's important for all of us to learn together. So I want you to think about for your daily action item, what you think your communication style is, and then looking at the reality, taking it from your followers' perspective, whether that's people that you work with or your family members, what you believe that other people, what the reality is in your communication style. So, and then we'll come back tomorrow and talk about how we can be more collaborative together. So I invite you to join in the discussion. You can leave me a voicemail. Please do by going to anchor.fm/attorneydsy and hitting that message button. You can leave me a comment for me to play on the show or a question for me to answer. You can also leave me a comment or question on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at AttorneyDSY. I'm also on LinkedIn. So please let me know if you have any comments about this episode. Tell me what you think about this podcast, or give me a topic you'd like to hear about. This podcast is on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, and Anchor, so please be sure to subscribe and rate and review. I also want to invite you to the next session of the Leadershift Emotional Intelligence Book Club, continuing on with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's book, The Stress Solution. The next session will be tomorrow, Wednesday, May 27th at 7 p.m. Central. You can find out more at facebook.com/LawyersEQ. Have a great day or night, and remember to fight for the lifestyle that you want and become the rainmaker that you need to be.